Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Chan. Great to have the two of you up in our Joburg studios. Really looking forward to the chemistry as it unfolds up there. But yes, down south, something really important to talk about today. Today is, in fact, World Hearing Day, a global reminder that many of us take our hearing for granted. I can even hear myself with a tone as I say that until it begins to affect us, until it changes. Now, hearing loss often happens gradually with subtle warning signs that are very easy to ignore. Yet early detection can prevent millions of cases worldwide. That's why we are having this conversation. So what are those signs that we are missing, and when should we take them seriously? Audiologist Lisa Shand from Cape Hearing Aids is back to guide us through this vitally important conversation. It's one of those we don't like to think about it until we have to think about it. Just as an overarching day of awareness, I know you are very much focused on the granular, on each patient, but there is an overarching science that's shifting and changing. There is an opportunity to get people behind you. Why is this day so important?
World Hearing Day comes, annually. It's just a day for us to highlight the importance of hearing, signs of hearing loss, and just kind of celebrate, what is available today when it comes to hearing and technology. It's a special, special day for our profession, but also for those who struggle with hearing loss.
And I love it. I could hear you earlier when every time you mention the word technology, I can just feel the excitement welling up. It's a new frontier, and that's amazing. Why don't we take this seriously? Is it the small incremental shifts that we don't notice? Feels like a Roald Dahl book where little things are happening that we don't notice until the big story happens. What do you think is standing in the way of us? It feels like not caring about our hearing as much as, say, our sight or other areas.
Look, I think the stigmatization that comes with hearing aids and hearing in general, I think we still have a long way to go, but I think there's been so much progress, as well. When you wear glasses and spectacles these days, the stigmatization has completely gone away. It's fashionable to now wear glasses. We really want to try and achieve the same goal with hearing aids, and technology, as I said, has changed drastically over these years. And hearing aids is not an exception. Modern hearing aids are discreet, they're invisible, they are able to connect to your phone, but the way that these things are processing sound is absolutely amazing.
It's a miracle. When you think of the cochlear implants and how much of a shift that's made for professionals in those spaces, what a gift to society that we're able to move forward like that. It's often been coined that you can hear, but you can't understand. What is breaking down in that instance? And I would imagine that's something you hear quite a lot, and you've got to try and then reverse figure out what's going on. What is generally happening in that instance?
It's such an important question because there's a big difference between hearing and understanding. Hearing, your ears are detecting the sound, it's able to funnel the sound, but your brain is what actually processes the sound. And so what we find, I don't think one day goes by in our practice where someone says, I can hear you, but I can't make out what you're saying. And the problem is that naturally our hearing deteriorates over time. There's a big myth that it happens suddenly, but it actually happens gradually over time. But with that, certain sounds are affected. It's not that the volume is kind of just reduced, it's the clarity of sound that's
certain
affected.
frequencies.
Exactly. So usually the higher frequency sounds are affected first. Your subtle, softer speech sounds, the f and the s and the t. And what happens is we're only then hearing a portion of the word, and you're kind of trying to make sense of the
and the meaning shifts dramatically in that sense. But that being said, I work in the audio space as a voiceover artist. What we can do, once you know what you're playing with, suddenly then the magic really can happen. So we can affect that. You mentioned it gradually decreases as we get older, but I would imagine there are certain gateways and moments in our life journey where hearing can be affected, or when there are the potential for danger. So how does it work? Okay, obviously as an older person, we need to be cognizant of that decline. Are there any other phases of life or things, maybe circumstantial, that could affect that?
So hearing loss knows no age. Okay, you can be born with the hearing loss, you can develop in childhood and all the way into adulthood. There's many different kind of contributing factors. I think a big one is noise-induced hearing loss. We're finding so many younger adults walk through our practices these days. days. I think we're living in a noisier world, whether it's like your work requirements, you're on Teams meetings.
You've got something in your ear for 90% of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think it's definitely, to be cautious about, what you're exposing your ears to, whether that be through headphones or, different types
Just say it out loud,
yeah.
my children. I'm allowed to tell my children. We were looking at this earlier as a potential question, okay?
Yes, I don't know how you can avoid that.
No, you're allowed to tell your children to just keep quiet because it's affecting your ears. When do we start? Because we get our eyes tested, have to get our eyes tested regularly to drive, to do functions of life. With hearing, it's not given the same impetus. So when should we be getting ourselves tested?
So hearing loss is quite a invisible difficulty, I think. It's not very much noticeable. But when you start noticing signs, and a lot of the signs of hearing loss are, you're putting the TV a lot louder. A lot of people are complaining that your TV is a little bit too loud. You're asking for constant repetition, whether it be one-on-one or noisy environments. When you are in noisy environments, you become so tired and fatigued from these social environments because you're kind of working so hard to fill these gaps. Overstimulating your brain so much. So the minute you start noticing these signs, but also when you don't notice these signs, get a baseline test in your 30s or your 40s.
I love that, yeah.
If you are exposed to loud noises, test your hearing once a year.
You work with machinery. Have you worked in a mine?
Exactly.
In those sorts of spaces?
Those types of environments. And just kind of also, if you, enjoy hobbies like, shooting or hunting or those different factors. And then also, if you notice sudden changes in your hearing, test your hearing immediately. The testing is painless, it's quick, it's easy, and you get a measurable outcome in terms of what your options are going forward and how, we go about it from there.
And quite a nuanced space to play in when we are addressing it. And that's what we're going to touch on after this. Technology has come on leaps and bounds in this space. There is help to be offered if we can move past the stigma. But we're going to look at some of the options that are available in this brave new world after this.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we hone in on World Hearing Day and continue to look at some of those early warning signs and what we need to do to be proactive as individuals, as parents as well. And we've got audiologist Lisa Shand back with us, chatting about some of the everyday habits right now, from prolonged earphone use to untreated ear infections, how they can quietly damage hearing over time, but also the good news that many cases of hearing loss are now preventable, and early support can make a significant difference. Tech is crazy. We'll lean into that in a moment. I suppose I have to ask, and I would imagine a lot of parents, again, are asking, how much damage can constant use of earphones have? To the point that some people are actually using their earphones now as audio-enhancing devices, noise-cancelling devices. I'm sitting listening to my director in my ear as I talk to you right now. But how much of a role can that play?
Yeah, the thing with headphone use is that noise exposure or noise-induced hearing loss, it creeps up on you. It's not something you notice immediately, but we do find that later on in life, the hearing loss onset is a lot earlier. And so I usually say, if your, I kind of use a 60-60 rule, if your volume is louder than 60%, and if you're using it longer than 60 minutes at a time, then that's not a good sign. Okay. Then you should kind of limit it. So always less than 60% and for no longer than 60 minutes at a time.
Children don't listen anyway. And I say this because I know, and I'm not making light of the fact that families are going through this, but it is a very real thing that it's difficult to understand exactly where your kids are in that space, because there's psychology involved, there's physiology involved, there's just hormones involved, there is a whole lot going on. With kids in particular, what are the signs that we need to look out for? Because they're not going to recognize, we're going to have to notice a shift and a change. What would you recommend we start with?
Yeah, it's so important you mention that, because kids aren't able to express what they're experiencing.
Exactly.
And so it's important for parents to look out for, even from very young. If they're not meeting their speech developmental milestones, not speaking when they're supposed to, or mispronunciation of words, they don't react when you call them, you call their name, or if there's an impact noise in the background, they don't react or look towards it, especially in the academic setting as well. If their teacher's complaining or, saying that they're struggling a little bit academically, they're daydreaming in class.
Maybe the lack of understanding in that space.
Exactly, and the problem is that these kids are labelled as distracted or naughty, when in fact we need to actually rule out that hearing loss could be a contributing factor.
You've introduced one of the stigmas, many stigmas attached to the space, which I imagine you must butt your head against every day in frustration. Things have changed. I've watched my wonderful father-in-law go through a process of being completely averse because it was big, it was clunky, it was painful to wear. We have come a very, very long way. We've seen very high-profile celebrity cases of ocular implants, singers emerging out of this space, which seems like an absolute miracle. Talk me about the treatment in this space and how far we've come.
Yeah, so the treatment options are based on obviously what your hearing diagnosis is. But hearing aids is an option, and with modern devices these days, like I mentioned a little bit earlier on, they are discreet, basically kind of invisible. You don't even notice them. Nowadays, also everyone has something in their ear, so no one's looking at your ears. And then also just around, connectivity and being able to connect to all your different devices.
The supportive tech.
Exactly. If you're calling your kids who are living overseas, your video call, your quality of your calls are so much better. And I think being able to engage in these different activities in life is life-changing. Also, just, hearing aid options that are available, your audiologist will be able to guide you through. There are many, many different options available suited to you as your individual person with your own hearing loss, with your own lifestyle needs, with your own budget. There's many, many different options available.
I love so many jumping off points because everyone is completely different, and often it's not the physical pressure that is driving them into the situation that they are. And we have to remember that. I'm sure you deal with that reality every day. So where do we start? What does it look like if right now I've gone, okay, hang on a minute, this is something that's been nagging in the back of my mind, I need to do this. What does that process look like?
The first thing is, if you start noticing these signs, usually it's your family that notices it first, and that's one of your biggest indicators. But if you notice these signs, book a hearing test with your professional hearing assessment with a qualified audiologist. These hearing tests are painless, they're quick, and we get a good measurable outcome in terms of what we need to do going forward. And that is your starting point. And from there, we'll be able to discuss proper treatment options dependent on your hearing loss and how it fits into your lifestyle.
And I was going to say, you can start getting excited about this new phase, because when you see it, and I love to poke fun at videos and memes online, but when you see that kick in, that moment is absolutely amazing. I think we might have some facts that we can bring up onto screen, and you can either dispute them, but we've got a fact here that says the longer you wait to treat hearing loss, the harder it becomes for your brain to recognize sound clearly. That's an interesting one, so park that one and think about that. Modern hearing aids cut through background noise so you can hear conversations clearly, even in busy settings. I saw you nodding your head emphatically so. Really, really, really interesting. I think it's a gateway to life. And I think we underserve the communities with hearing loss and the deaf members of our community. And I think that's an area that we really need to focus on, but we don't even look in this space at all. And it's such a critical gateway. So thank you so much for doing what you do every day.
Thank you.
If only we now can get our children to listen. I can joke about it because I am a parent, and this is something that does terrify me. The devil is in the details here. Stay connected, have these conversations, maybe check in with your partner. Certainly if you're getting around my age, hearing connects us to conversation, to work, to family, to safety. That is vital. On World Hearing Day, the message is simple. Don't ignore the signs. Early testing and simple habits can protect something most of us only notice, sadly, when it begins to fade.